Diving into the headlines of the mysterious and unexplained, this is The Unseen News with Guy Ticker, where the extraordinary is just the beginning. Did alien life exist on Mars billions of years ago? We believe that the dusty Martian ice exposures in the mid-latitudes represent the most easily accessible places to search for Martian life today. The conditions needed for photosynthesis to occur on Mars could exist beneath the surface of dusty ice at the red planet's mid-latitudes. This according to new research. Photosynthesis, as you may know, is the process by which living things like plants, algae, and cyanobacteria create chemical energy. It requires water and light to proceed, and creates the majority of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. The new study suggests that a thick enough layer of ice on Mars could filter out harsh radiation from the sun, but also allow enough sunlight through for photosynthesis, creating so-called radiative habitable zones. Just as photosynthesis needs the right light to proceed, the results must be viewed in the right light. While they don't suggest that life currently exists on Mars or has ever existed in the history of the red planet, the results do give scientists engaging in this ongoing search an idea of where to look. And that wraps up tonight's top news story. This is Guy Ticker on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network.
Well, it is the 3rd of January, and I tell you what, the time is going by so fast. Pretty soon I'm going to have to pay for my taxes. I hope everybody's having a good one. We are down at the studio. I'll tell you what, it is chilly down here at the compound. I'll tell you that. I don't even have to put stuff on the freezer. I can just leave it on the porch and it's cold. Tonight we have a great show. We're going to be talking about, structures on Mars. How did it get there? Did humans originate from Mars? Maybe the pyramids did. From the standpoint, all the technology we had early biblical times on this planet, I just don't think we had the technology to create the pyramids, the Sphinx, all the strange pyramids all around the world. Antarctica, what's buried underneath that? I really think that we've had help, and maybe we could be the Martians. Let's find out a little bit about our guests tonight. Here's some information.
George J. Haas is the founder and premier investigator of the Mars research group known as the Cydonia Institute. A member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research, he's co-authored 2 books and 6 peer-reviewed science papers related to anomalous formations on the surface of Mars. He's appeared on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory and on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, The Proof is Out There, and The Unexplained with William Shatner. He lives in Waterford, Virginia. For more on George Haas, visit his website, www.theCydoniaInstitute.com.
Well, George, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, Gary. It sounds good on your program. There's a lot of problems with the audio, but I hope I'm sounding good.
No, your audio again is distorted.
Unbelievable. I actually probably sound like I'm talking to you from Mars.
Well, it's a good possibility. You never know with our technology. Maybe you are on Mars.
Yes. Well, my wife sometimes won't like to put me on Mars, but I'm sorry about the audio. We did all we can to get this sounding good. And is it that distorted? Does it sound better now?
No, it's just distorted.
Oh, my God. I mean, do I sound like I'm not speaking English, or how bad is it?
It sounds like you got wax paper over your microphone. But we'll just continue on, and as long as we can this way. Right. So what do you think, before we get into talking about Mars, all these drones and all, people on TikTok and Facebook and all these other medias freaking out like, hey, our aliens, they're showing themselves. They're going to stop a nuclear war. What's your take on all these drones? Because that's what they are, like Walmart, Amazon, people's private ones, military, NASA, you name it.
Well, yeah, from what I have seen with these drones and the images, of course, the administration, the government, they're trying to downplay them. They're trying to tell people that they're seeing airplanes with, lights on the wings. But a lot of these images that we're seeing that people have videotaped with their phones and stuff, they're large drones. They're not the type of drone that you would buy at Walmart. These are pretty big. They're as large as a Volkswagen. Some of these are pretty large vehicles that are flying around. They're unmanned, obviously, and I think they are probably being sent up by our government as an experiment, and they're doing this in broad daylight. They're just trying to get reactions from the public. I don't think they're anything to do with any foreign government. I think this is all our current government that's doing this, and probably the leadership probably isn't even aware that they're doing these experiments.
Well, too, people discovered these drones at night. Just think how many people didn't look at the sky at night and seen these things. And that caused people to go out, off their decks or out in their yard and look up the sky and see these things. Look at the guy who shot a Walmart drone down here recently and is being sued by Walmart. I mean, even off of our place, we live in Gig Harbor, Washington. A couple of weeks ago, I sent my son out there, and guess what? He came back. He found a couple drones at night, like 11 o'clock at night, flying.
Well, it's kind of like mass hysteria, panic. It's kind of like War of the Worlds, where people were shooting water towers and things because they were panicking. I'm sure a lot of these are small, private drones that people are flying around. Probably a lot of citizens are flying their drones around now just to, get reaction. But I think the initial sightings over trees, and they were very low flying drones, were probably ours. I don't think they were anything from any foreign countries.
I agree with you 100%. Now, what got you into structures on Mars? My philosophy is that maybe humans originated from Mars at one point.
Well, you may be onto something there, because I've come to the similar conclusion. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've studied NASA ESA images of structures on Mars. And from what I've gathered from what I'm looking at and the history of Mars, the scientists, what they're telling us, the history of our solar system, I think our solar system and the history of the evolution of the planets is a lot more complicated and more complex than we're aware of. Just as an example, the asteroid belt, which is just beyond Mars, Jupiter, you have the asteroid belt there. Possibly that was an exploded planet. And there's a lot of research that current scientists are looking at about the whole destruction of the dinosaurs possibly was caused by a change of gravity. Now, if the asteroid belt was a planet at one time and blew, this would change the whole gravitational pull of planets. And the scientists such as Dr. Tom Van Franlin have done papers on this idea, is that this planet was called Planet X that blew up. They don't know why it blew up, if it was a internal a geological problem where the core blew up, or this was an intentional destruction, kind of like a Darth Vader with the Death Star, like a Star Wars type of event. So this planet blew up, and when it did, it destroyed that whole balance of the solar system. And all the planets were pushed in towards the sun, causing Mercury and Venus to burn up. All their atmosphere was destroyed. Earth's atmosphere changed because we had less gravity. Or had more gravity because we are closer to the sun. So the dinosaurs couldn't exist. That's how they all died. It wasn't because a meteor hit in Yucatan. It was because of this Planet X blowing up 65 million years ago that changed the gravity on Earth. That's why the alligators and the turtles and all of the reptiles that were low to the ground survived, and these huge mega dinosaurs all died because of the gravity.
Well, too, weren't they? Some of them froze to death, and then the other part of the Earth, when it all hit, they were cremated.
Not sure about that, but I know that this whole idea about the 65 million years ago was this dramatic event. Could have been a planet blowing up, because even the Moon, Mars, and some of the other planets, they have a lot of meteor hits on the side that faces out towards the solar system, not the sides that face the sun. So they had a lot of damage on that when this meteor blew up.
Very interesting.
That's just a theory, but what we're finding on Mars evolved after that massive destruction. Whatever civilization was living on Mars at that time was destroyed. They may have known that this was going to happen. It could have been a war, or it could have been, like I said, a internal geological problem, and they left the planet and came to Earth. So we may have a long history of planet hopping, going from Earth back to Mars and back to Earth. And now Mars is just taking place.
Well, if you really think about it, look at Superman. His planet was blowing up.
Well, yeah, you have a lot of these stories in comic books.
I know.
Star Wars is very interesting. There may be like an ounce of truth in these stories that have been made into these fictitious movies and comic books that actually have are derived from this ancient history that we've forgotten.
Well, if you really look at human civilization, look at the pyramids. We didn't have the technology. We still don't have the technology to build the pyramids. The Sphinx, we really don't know how old it really is yet to this day. We now came to the conclusion that at one point it was underwater for a long period of time with the wear marks in the back and on it, on the lower end. And then if you look at Peru, you look at South America, you look at the Incas, the Maya civilizations, and all that stuff with the pyramids, the technology they had. I really think at one point, people think, aliens came and used our planet for resources and created slaves on our planet. My feeling is maybe, again, our life originated on this planet from Mars, because they might have had a long time to populate this planet knowing what was going on with their planet.
The last chapter of my book, The Great Architects of Mars, talks about a similar scenario. I guess we're jumping the gun here going to the end of my book, but I discuss, I'm sure not many people out in your listening audience know about a Maya Star War. Speaking of Star Wars earlier with the Death Star and the Darth Vader type of stuff. Well, archaeologists have been very fascinated with this whole story that originated in the little-known town of Naranjo in Mexico. And in this little town, which was one of the oldest Maya settlements in the area, they have this written record on their monuments and in their hieroglyphics. We talk about what archaeologists, this is not me talking, Larry, this is archaeologists. They say this is a Maya Star War. And the Star War was between Naranjo, Tikal, Cozumel, and a place that they call Six Earth Place. Now, Six Earth Place, archaeologists don't know where the heck it is. There's no records about this conflict with Earth and this Six Earth Place with Tikal and Naranjo. And Six Earth Place, from my research, I found is actually Mars, because the founding patron god of Naranjo was the Zip monster, or he's also known as the Mars beast. He's in the Dresden Codex. He's in a lot of Maya hieroglyphics. He's in a lot of Maya monuments. He's all over the place. He's one of the gods from the creation story, and his origins are connected to ours. And Six Earth Place is directly connected to the Zip monster. And what I discuss in my new book is how the Six Earth Place is probably Mars, because the ancient Sumerians counted the planets from the outside in, going with the Anunnaki in the history that was discussed with Zacharias Sitchin. The Sumerians tended to count the planets from the outside in. The Earth was the 7th planet. Venus was the 8th planet, and Mars was the 6th planet. The Maya had the same numbering system. They designated Mars with a zip monster and the number 6. Earth was seen as the 7th planet, and Venus was also the 8th planet, and so on. So it's very similar correlation here. And so 6th Earth place, which is a Earth-like place, 6th planet, is Mars. And that's where this conflict was. And the Maya talk about this whole war that was going on. And this is illustrated at Chichen Itza, inside the main temple there, the Temple of the Jaguar. On the walls, they illustrate the battles. And these are illustrated in a lot of the Maya text. And it's just amazing that archaeologists haven't put this together.
Well, what really got you really interested in Mars? And to the point where you have done research on the structures and, your ideas of how, what happened.
Well, my interest in Mars all started with Richard Hoagland and the face on Mars. I was very intrigued by the face on Mars. I was anxiously awaiting NASA to take newer pictures because all we had to look at for, numerous years was the Viking images. And when in 1998, when they took the new Mars Global Surveyor images of the face, and they took the later pictures of the Mars orbiter and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter images, what I think was that the face on Mars, and a lot of people, when they think about a face on Mars, they think it's a human face. They think it looks like Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra. It's a human symmetrical face. The face on Mars is totally different than that. It's a bifurcated face. It has a human side on the western side, and the eastern side is a feline face. So right off, we have a duplicated face of a human feline, this whole idea of duality. And when I first looked at that, I said, well, I had to find Earth cultures that, did bifurcated faces. Just, is this a real thing? Do people do this? Does human cultures, the civilizations make mask and artwork with two faces? And I found prominently this was done in Mesoamerica, in the Maya, Olmec, Aztec cultures. Right. So right off, you have human feline masks that are produced in Mesoamerica. And the other thing I noticed is when you duplicate the face, we don't like to use the term mirror, because when you say you're going to mirror one side or the other, people's eyes start to twitch. They think you're just being crazy. But archaeologists do this a lot when they're deciphering Maya hieroglyphics and masks and things, because they're bifurcated. They're two-faced. And they call it duplication, instead of saying mirroring. So when Richard Hoagland duplicated or mirrored the face on Mars, he saw a human side, or humanoid, and the other side was very feline. And we find the same thing in Mesoamerica. But also, when it's duplicated on the humanoid side, there is a distinct W-shaped emblem on the forehead. He has like an Egyptian headdress, which the Olmec did very similar type of headdress. And this W-shaped emblem, which is called a tri-leaf symbol, which is a symbol of royalty, is right out of Mesoamerica. So my early 2 books that I did with my early colleague and geologist or geomorphologist, William Shatner, we found that overwhelmingly there was all this symbolism that was in the face on Mars that was directly in correlation with Mesoamerican cultures. And to make a long story short, Gary, everything we've found so far is all can be related to Mesoamerica. So there's a direct symbolism connection between all these things that we're finding on Mars with Mesoamerica.
Well, again, some of these structures now, NASA recently debunked the face on Mars. They claim that they debunked it. I still disagree with that, because one thing I used to do a long time ago, and Art Bell was a friend of mine, and he would do it too. We would go on to NASA's website, and it's funny. All of a sudden, Richard would say, look on this, and we go and look. And there it was. The next day, it was scrubbed. It wasn't there. And I really think that they have been trying to deceive the population here, that there is structures and there is statues, and there's all these different things on Mars.
Well, NASA's been very clever with how they've addressed the face on Mars. NASA says the face on Mars is not a human face. And they're right, it's not. So even though they come out and say these things that seem to diminish what the face is, their main case is that it's not a human face. It's not a symmetrical face. It's not. It's a two-faced edifice that has a humanoid side on one side and a feline on the other, which is right out of Mesoamerica. But, you can't do that on CNN or Fox News in a 2-minute segment with the journalist there talking about, oh, look what we found on Mars. We got a two-faced, human. People's, they want to know more. It would take a very long time to explain to people this whole idea of this iconography, the art technique that people are doing, this cultural influence. It's just too mind-boggling for people. It's simpler for them to say, oh, it's not a face.
Well, again, just recently they showed like an entrance to a cave on Mars too. And you could clearly, if I'm really into photography as much as I am into broadcasting. And I really took that picture and analyzed it from pixel to pixel. And there was definitely an entrance going into the side of a mountain or whatever it was. But again...
Are you talking about the picture that was taken from the little rover that drove by, and up on the mountain there's like this rectangular opening?
Yes, uh-huh.
Did you notice the wall going into the opening? It's almost like a very slick marble slab. It's very clean cut. It's obvious, and it's not that big, but it still could be an air vent for something. But it's not just a natural formation. It's obviously a doorway or an air vent.
Yeah, one of the two. But again, when you analyze it, it is not a natural. It couldn't have developed natural.
Right. And these things are just all over the planet.
Do you think there could be possible life on Mars yet? In Mars, underground?
Well, from my research, I haven't seen any signs of any life on Mars. There's a lot of ruins on Mars. There's in the rover images, when they drive by, there's a lot of evidence of debris. It looks like ruins of a massive war where things blew up. There's a lot of things that have been blown up all over the place. The aerial images show a lot of pyramids and structures and little cities and complexes. They look mostly pristine, as my co-author William Saunders would say. A lot of these look they're not that old, and they're in really good shape. And then other times you'll find things that appear to have been hit during, it wasn't hit by a meteor that caused the damage. It was probably some kind of missile.
You think they maybe had a nuclear war or some type of war on that planet at one time?
Well, more than one. Dr. Brandenburg, I don't know if you've ever had him on your show. He's a member of the Society for Planetary SETI Research, and he's published a few papers on the discovery of Xeon 129 on the planet Mars, which NASA had known about since the Viking missions. And every mission since, they have atmosphere testers that sniff the air and things around, and they've confirmed the appearance of Xeon 129, which is a nuclear signature. It's not a natural signature. It's something from nuclear explosions that we had when we were doing the testings in the 50s here on Earth, Russia, United States. So this is a signature that somebody blew up a nuclear bomb on Mars. And Dr. Brandenburg found signatures in the Cydonia area where the famous face on Mars is, and directly on the other side of the planet, the Utopia area. These are the two areas where NASA found this signature. And he believes that this just is proof that there was some type of event happening on Mars. But, Gary, when this event happened, it destroyed everything on Mars. The structures we're seeing now were built after that. So this is a long history of conflict.
You think we're being told the truth, too, when they say there virtually is not enough oxygen to support life on Mars?
Well, there's oxygen is very needed on Mars, but the people that built these structures after they were done many years later. According to this Maya story, going back to the Maya Star War, the documents in the Maya hieroglyphics date the appearance of the culture on Sixth Earth Place took place about 1 million years ago. Gary, 1 million years. This is all in Maya hieroglyphics. And there was also a resurgence of this culture about 20,000 years ago. And that coincides with what my co-author, William Shatner, thought. He's a geomorphologist about the date of some of these things. They're probably no more than 20, 50,000 years ago. These are recent ruins.
That is very interesting.
It is.
Now,
and we're just going by documents that we're reading in Maya mythology.
Now,
and this also correlates with, I'm sure you've heard about Zecharia Sitchin with the Anunnaki.
Right.
The Anunnaki play a part in this also.
We need to take a break, and we come back. You have some pictures that you can share too, right?
I hope we can get them up there.
Okay, we'll give it a try. We'll be back in about 4 minutes with George. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Again, people are messaging me that the audio, it could be a lot of things with the internet. It could be solar flares. It could be who knows. But a lot of things can interfere with the internet. But anyway, we'll be back right after this. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Look at you, what a view, lady, you got class. You got it all, yes you do, but you're missing something. I can see you fronting, like you want for nothing. Look at all you have, but you need some loving. Yeah, it's been too long, you've been starved of the love you deserve. Baby, I know you're worth much more. Baby, just give me a shot. I know the flavor of love, whipping the crowd. All that you need, serving it hot. Baby, I know how you feel. You want something more, something real. Come get this love, get your fill. I ain't no snack, I'm a full-course meal. Hey, baby, I know you're tired of playing games.
Take a journey of adventure and discovery for the enigmatic giants of the forests. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. The author himself describes it this way.
Having found possible Sasquatch evidence, namely trees driven into the ground upside down, thought to be territory markers, led me to investigate this creature in my native Ohio. Several years and many forays into Bigfoot territory, I have found incredible evidence, which inspired my book, On the Trail of Bigfoot. Bigfoot is alive and has many fantastic abilities. The evidence is out there for all to see, but you need to know what to look for. My book will inspire those who have answered the call to seek this elusive creature, the Bigfoot. The truth is out there.
Read On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. Available now at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and IndieBound.org. Diving into the headlines of the mysterious and unexplained, this is the Unseen News with Guy Ticker, where the extraordinary is just the beginning. Australian Institute funds research into UFOs and unexplained phenomena. It's asking the biggest question of all: are we alone? Noory head of projects Ross Caulfield said, quote, "Only about 5% of all the sightings that come in can't be explained mundanely." UFO researcher Keith Basterfield said, "No UAP protocol exists in Australia. Australia's Department of Defense doesn't have a specific policy governing the reporting or recording of UAP by members of the public or military personnel." However, a defense spokesperson said in a statement, quote, "There are established procedures used by the military and civilian air traffic controllers and air crew for the management and reporting of airspace infringements and unknown aircraft, and the reporting of incidents that pose a risk to aviation safety. As Australia's Department of Defence sees no compelling reason to divert resources to the specific recording and investigation of UAP, Cathcart said his institute was stepping up. And that wraps up tonight's top news story. I'm Guy Ticker on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
And we are back talking to George about, well, the structures on Mars. Was there life on Mars? And how long ago there was life on Mars? George, we are back.
All right. I'm here, Gary.
Okay.
I'm sounding better.
Okay. Now, you have some images of some of these structures on Mars, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Bring those up. Are you seeing that?
I am seeing that.
All right.
By the way, they look like my late Aunt Bertha's nose. Well, yeah, what can you tell the listeners about this?
Well, this is famous Sagan pyramids. These were discovered. The image on the left is from Mariner 9 back in 1972. This is a three-sided tetrahedral pyramid that was photographed by Mariner 9. It caught the attention of Carl Sagan. He mentioned this when he spoke at the Royal Institute in London back in 1977. This was also featured in his book Cosmos. And on the right is a recent image of the Mars Reconnaissance CTX image, which is a more crisp image. I'm sure that Carl Sagan would be very pleased to see this, but unfortunately, he died in 1996.
Yeah, big difference.
The CTX image wasn't taken until 2007, like almost over 10 years later.
Well, technology drastically improved, and when you look at the latest one, it makes you puzzle. I don't think that looks like it was maybe man-made.
Well, this isn't the only pyramid in the area. There's a whole complex. If the listeners out there are privileged enough to think about getting my new book, The Great Architects of Mars, there's a whole chapter on the Sagan pyramid. And this is not alone. There's pyramids all around this, a whole complex. So it's pretty amazing.
Okay, you have another image?
Hit the button here. Come on. Yeah, this second image here, this is what I call a, it looks like a large star. I call it the starburst. The image on the left is on Mars. It's a 5-pointed structure with the little mounds in the middle. The image on the right is it's Fort Henry. That's Fort Henry that was in Tennessee. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
You notice, if I can use my little cursor here, if you notice this straight edge here on this Mars formation, very similar to what we see here. The same very stout shape of a star. It's almost identical. And the star fort that was built in Tennessee back in 1861 also has these little structures inside, and we have little structures here. The comparison is pretty stunning. It's amazing that we find these forts, which were very near water, and this area that we're looking at Mars, a lot of NASA scientists believe had a lot of water in the area. So this star fort on Earth is almost a doppelganger for what we're seeing on Mars. What do you think, Gary?
I think it resembles it quite a bit, really. And it stands to reason, too, if we are the Martians, the technology they had, they certainly would have brought it here with them, for us. Well, with it, on our planet.
Oh, yeah, it would be the same type of intellectual psyche that, you're building things. Man has 5 points, the head, 2 arms and legs. That's the whole, star symbolism. So you would think that this commonality would adhere to what we were building on Mars, and if we had come here, similar culture, although millions of years possibly separating these cultures, or even less, that we'd find similar architectural markers like this.
It does make sense. How long did it take you to come to that conclusion?
I've been studying this for 30 years, Gary, and it's been a slow evolution of alignments with what we're seeing on Mars and what we're finding on Earth. I have a whole on our Cydonia Institute website. There's a link to our discussion board, which last year I've been just posting the best examples of structures on Mars, and we have at least 60 examples that people can look at. If the listeners want to go over to the Cydonia Institute in their spare time, and you can just go through those, and it's amazing. And I do these same type of side-by-side comparisons, and it's pretty striking. And I'll be going through archaeological ruins or things like that, or ancient structures, and I'll see something, go, oh, God, I think I've seen that on Mars, and I'll copy it and download it and go find out what I thought it looked like. And my God, just like this, it's like, my God, they're almost identical. And this goes on all the time.
Here's the point. If our government here doesn't want to come clean about UAPs, UFOs, flying discs, flying saucers, whatever you want to call it tonight, if they don't want to come true, and tell the population about Roswell going back in 1947, I don't think that is one of the reasons they're not going to tell us about what the structures on the moon, the structures on Mars. And again, if you really think about it, they for years, they say, we're going to go back to the moon. We haven't done it. We're going to create a base on the moon. We still haven't done it. They talk about going to Mars and putting humans on it. But yet, it gets pushed back. I think the reason why it gets pushed back is because if we did any of those things, we're going to realize very fastly that we've been lied to.
Oh, exactly. I don't know how old you are, Gary, but when I was in high school in the mid-'70s, I graduated high school in 1976. I was part of the bicentennial class that graduated. And I can remember our science teacher telling us that, after we went to the moon in 1969, we were going to go to the Mars and onto the moon and build, there were going to be resorts on the moon and all kinds of things. I mean, it's only 3 days away, the moon. And none of that ever happened because I think when the Apollo missions went to the moon, there was too much stuff everywhere. There was ruins and things that showed that somebody occupied that area a long time ago. And they know that there's stuff on Mars, so we can't be building resorts and human occupations of these planets when the people at the resorts looking out the window and going, Dad, what's that over there? That looks like an old ruin of a building. You shouldn't have that.
Well, yeah, but then again, if we did do that and it got back to the population, do you realize how the average human would feel? They would feel that the world governments have deceived them.
Well, they have. They're deceiving us all the time.
I still
What do you think about this? What do you think about this pentagonal step pyramid?
I find that very interesting.
And this is similar to the famous D&M pyramid over in Cydonia. Down below the face on Mars, there's another 5-sided pyramid. This one's more intricate. It's more of a step-type pyramid. And in the book, I have a comparison, which we don't have time for here, of a Mesoamerican type of a polygony pyramid that has this almost similar design, which is pretty amazing. So because we're getting close to time here, I'm going to move on to the next one.
Okay, let's see what the next one is.
This is one of my favorites. This is over in this is an Arabian mound that's over in the Middle East. This is a hexagonal mound with a platform with a mound in the center, which is on Mars. The one on the left, this is on Mars. On the one on the left, the one on the right is over in it's an Arabian structure. Little texture on the right side, the eastern side of this structure is all little cities that are on there. And you'll see the one on Mars has the city on the other side, and it all has this central mound also. I mean, these are just amazing comparisons. That's, as above, so below, as a lot of people say.
Very similar to each other. And it makes you really open your eyes when you see this. See, the problem is the average person can't find this information without, knowing where to look. And when you see stuff like this, it makes you realize that there is more to life than we've been told.
Well, Gary, one of the weird things, I mean, I'm not trying to be wacky and say I'm being guided by some mysterious force, but it's like I find these things on Mars, and then I do little Google searches and look, and it's like within a day or two, I find a comparison. It's like, I don't know how I find these, but they just show up. Sometimes I'll be looking for something else, and I'll find something that looks like something I've already seen. Like, that looks like something else I've seen. And it's like, my God, it's almost identical. So it's like, it is amazing that I'm finding these comparisons like this. And what I'm looking for is the public to take a look at these, make their own decisions. In the book, we provide links. They can go look at these real images for themselves. And I'm convinced if you look at my book and you find one structure on Mars that you cannot explain, I think I've done my job.
Well, I think you're doing a good job presenting it, because from the standpoint, again, that's one thing, Mars and the moon. I've always, like I said, been interested in structures and stuff like that. And, again, with Rover and all these other, when we have sent them out, NASA, a lot of times the images would go out, and then like with matter of like hours or the next day, they were blacked out, like they never existed. And I think it's because stuff occasionally leaks out.
Well, we find that a lot with the Rover that's driving around on the ground there, taking all these panoramic views and all these structures. It's amazing. Some of the I mean, I don't have anything in my book about this, but we're talking about seeing these structures everywhere. In the Rover images, there appears to be just ruins everywhere, things that have been blown up, machinery parts that are just all rusted and corroded that do not look like rocks. And when the Rover drives around, it'll take these little panoramic views or take a whole section of this landscape, and you'll see something like to the right of the Rover, and it'll doesn't look like a rock. They won't go over there and get better pictures of that. They'll drive over and get a close-up image of a real rock. They love rocks, but anything that doesn't look like a rock, the Rover seems to avoid.
They do. I think we got a caller here, so let's find out. Who do we have? Who do we have out there?
We got Art.
Hi, Art. You have a question for George?
Yes, George. Doing that all your experience, and we hear all the time on these other ancient aliens and all the stuff that we have technology crafts that can go light speed, or like their ships and everything. If you think that if we have that, why isn't it that we could go to anywhere besides Mars? Is that a possibility that this is that we're using the old NASA ships and the SpaceX and all that taking a long time, but yet we already have things where people say that these crafts that we have were 80 years advanced, that can we go to these out of the universe more or less? Do you believe in that? Is there a possibility? And are you feeling that you do know that there's aliens out there with ships? I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Well,
thank you.
As for our technology, Elon Musk has really gone light years ahead of NASA. He created a spaceship that takes off just like the old 1950s science fiction movies. It takes off and goes somewhere and lands. It's pretty remarkable. The only thing preventing us from going to Mars with our technology, which I think we can go pretty easily, is that it's politics. It's all political will. About 4 or 5 years ago, we were scheduled to go to the moon by 2023, 2024. We should have been on the moon already, but funding's been cut back, and we've pushed it further and further. Now they're saying that we might go to the moon by 2030 or 2028. It's always being pushed out, and of course we have to go to the moon before we can go to Mars. So it's there's a segment in the government that doesn't want any of this to ever happen. Whatever they found on the moon, they don't want anybody to know about, and whatever NASA has have seen on Mars, obviously they don't. Just looking at this picture here with this keyhole formation, which is being compared to a Kufan tomb in Japan, they're almost identical. And these things are all over Mars. There's pyramids, there's cities, there's everything. And NASA has been well aware of this, and they just put the images out there. They're readily available for the public, but they very rarely make any comment about what they're taking a picture of, and they leave it up for us to discuss. Most scientists that look at these are only interested in the geology. If they, like Dr. Brandenburg had once said, if they had the rover drove up and saw a lizard on one of the rocks, they would put the arm out and knock the lizard off so they could get a better image of the rock.
Yeah. Well,
That's where we're at.
I've asked repeatedly through the years, because I've been doing this for 56 long years. I'm way older than you. And I've asked, NASA to come on the show. They refuse to have any of their representatives of NASA to come on because they know what type of questions I'm going to ask, and then they don't want to be involved in trying to answer something.
No, they don't want to bring any attention to the discussion, because once they agree to come on and discuss what you would like to ask them, that opens up a whole can of worms for them, because then they have to respond. And the media says, "Oh, why is NASA coming on this program with Gary? Who's he?" That's how they look at it.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask questions I know they won't answer. Again, like I said, me and Art would spend a lot of time looking at images on the moon, images of Mars, and I'm telling you, they would disappear so fast.
Well, even for myself, going through the archives of NASA, it's very convoluted and difficult. They have a tendency of the images don't normally disappear. What they do is they change the access numbers. So if you provide links for things and you have where the access the data is, they change that. So that's one obstacle that you have to get over to do this type of research. And things appear to be disappearing, but sometimes they're there, but you just have to find out what the actual, the key is to get there. They keep changing the combinations for the locks.
Yeah, they do that purposely. What do you think the population, honestly, George, how would they take it if, NASA came and actually said this image is of a structure on Mars and they admitted to it? What do you think would happen?
Well, I think NASA might want to do that, but the whole. Did you ever see the movie Contact?
Oh yeah,
Jodie Foster. The whole problem of the movie with the releasing this information about finding this the structure that would take them through the wormholes and everything was public reaction with the religious fanatics. I mean, you have the Muslim community, you have the Christian community. There's a lot of fanatics in those religions. I mean, myself, I'm a Christian. I don't think any of this really diminishes anything about the existence of God. Even the Anunnaki believed in God. So, God's really not a problem. It's just that how people perceive these texts from ancient Bibles and whatever religious texts they're reading is that they're threatened by this. And I think that what most of the governments are afraid of is the reaction of these people. I mean, we just had 2 bombings here on New Year's Eve. So this is a problem. And the other threat is that the communist countries like China and Russia, the Russians were way ahead of us in the space program. They were orbiting the moon. They had the first woman. They were taking low altitude pictures of the surface. The suspicion is that they were aware of seeing structures on the moon, and they had warned Kennedy about it. The Russians wouldn't want to reveal anything about structures on the moon or Mars because that would diminish their power. In that type of communist structure, the government is the power. The government's everything. There's no religion. They get rid of all the Bibles. They get rid of all the religion, and you worship the government. And they wouldn't want to have any type of evidence come out to say that, there was an advanced civilization in the past that was greater than Russia or China. I mean, that's how I see it.
So what do you?
It's a big problem.
So what do you think the future is going to be with what you're doing? I know that, a lot of people have been doing what you're doing for years, and isn't it a hard sell?
It's a very hard sell. I mean, I have a book out. I'm not going to make a lot of money, because the publisher, God love the publisher, but they make most of the money. But my goal is to get the information out there. I want people to see these things. If they question it, you can go look at the NASA images. The images that I present in the book, nothing's been altered. The only thing that has been done is maybe the contour, a tweaking of the light and dark or something, but no manipulation of anything. This is all real natural NASA photographs. And I think the evidence is overwhelming. And I'm out there trying to get the message out. I don't know what the public's reaction is going to be. That's why I'm on your show.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Your audience is open to this, and hopefully we can get a conversation started.
Well, we got a caller. Caller, you have a question for George?
Yes, I do. My question is, does your guest believe that NASA or even Elon Musk has been able to overcome the alleged problem that other people have said that we had getting through the Van Allen belt and the problem with radiation that our astronauts and cosmonauts have suffered at the International Space Station? And does that preclude the idea that we're going to be able to go back to the moon or go to Mars?
Good question, Tom.
Yeah, radiation's a problem. I'm sure with technology, with suits and proper insulation of the spacecraft, that could be overcome. Mars, the surface of Mars has a lot of radiation. That's why there's nobody there. There's only ruins. We'd have to develop some type of protective outfits that we could go and examine these structures. That's one of the problems with Mars being, so devastated with war after war. Going all the way to what Dr. Brandenburg talks about with the nuclear destruction of the planet. And the planet was destroyed then, but somehow another culture, possibly the same culture, came back and rebuilt, and then had another war. So there's a long history of battles on Mars. And, I agree that one of the hurdles is to get over all of the radiation, but I'm sure we could develop some type of outfits and things to wear, protective gear to get there. And just to look at these structures. This one I have up here now with this compartmentalized grid complex. The image on the left looks like the ruins of Dresden over in Germany. And the one on the right is, Saudi Arabian ruins of these little compartmentalized housing structures. They almost look identical. One's on Mars, one's on Earth. We're only going to know when we go there. And we've got to get over the whole problem of the radiation.
Yeah, we do. And boy, that would be interesting to actually go there and see it. I wish I was young, and maybe I would have. But, again, at my age, that's never going to happen. How long did it take you to write this book, George?
The book here, I've been doing this, like I said, for 30 years. This is my third book. This one I've done by myself. My first two books were done with my colleague, William Saunders. This is probably an accumulation of at least 10 years of research. The problem was trying to find a publisher. I had this book sitting, as they say, sitting in the can for a while. I actually have 3 or 4 more books ready to go that are as much detail as this has. But thank God, talking to my good friend Cliff on the Earth Ancients, he had told me about one of the guys over at Aaron Company, and contacted them. And within months, they were interested in doing my book. The problem is the book took almost 2 years to process, from the initial acceptance to the chapters and the proofreading and the editing. So it took a while.
Oh, I bet.
It was a nightmare.
Now, you want to turn your main camera on. By any chance, do you have a copy of your book you can hold up for the listeners and audience?
Yeah. How do I get out of this?
I don't know. I'm in Gig Harbor.
Hold on. I
Okay.
guess I hit an X. There we go. Hit another X. Come on. I'm trying to get back there, brother. Are you there?
I am here.
Oh, my God.
Well, okay. Our time is virtually gone. Why don't you tell the listeners and the viewers the name of the book and where they can find it at?
Yeah, I've lost your whole website here, or your image. I'm holding it up to the screen. It's The Great Architects of Mars by George J. Haas. It's available on Amazon. It's also available at Barron Company, Intertraditions. And it's not available till January 7th, which is coming up, I guess, next week. You can pre-order and, give it out as gifts to all your friends and, wish them a happy new year with a great book of all these structures on Mars. It's a 13-chapter book. It's got everything in there, a lot of the highlights of some of the structures that we've been examining on Mars. One of the chapters talks about the Maya Star Wars and how it's all connected to actual texts from Mesoamerica, connected to the Zip monster. And there's also a chapter on the Anunnaki, which was most people know from Zecharia Sitchin, which
Right.
actually talks about having bases on the moon and Mars and how this is all connected
Now,
to
George,
the Mesoamerican culture.
now, do you have a website or anything you want to share?
Hey, there I am. Am I back?
No, not yet.
Well, I'm seeing myself now.
Well, anyway,
Yeah. If anybody wants to get some more information, just go on the internet and type in the Cydonia Institute, and it'll come right up.
great. Hey, George, I
And when
want
you
to.
go on there, we have images or science papers that are, all of our science papers are on there. You don't have to pay for them. You can read them for free. There's the Cydonia Institute Field Journal, which has articles about a lot of these structures. And there's links to order the book. And all the books. I have 2 other books also.
Great. Okay, George, I have to let you go. You have a great weekend. I really appreciate you being on. And again, everybody, if you want to get information about his book, just go to our website. There's a link to it at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Everybody, I'll catch you next Thursday. You have a good one and stay out of trouble, please. We'll catch you on the other side.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not inside. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights.